So here is our presentation. And yeah, so just to make sure everyone is in the right place, this is the first offering of our first gen webinar series. So this one is going to be focused on housing and residential life. So welcome to the UCSD neighborhood. We have an array of folks here who are experienced with residence life in many ways and forms. And you're going to get to meet them in just a moment. But first off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Will Songer. My title is Senior New Student Program Specialist. It is a fancy way of saying I'm in charge of our new student orientation program. So you may be getting emails from me lately asking you to sign up for orientation. Those are coming from me. Make sure you sign up for orientation. If you do have some orientation questions for us today, we could also go over those. But yeah, that's me. I'm going to pass it to Ray to introduce himself next.
Thanks, Will. Hi, everybody. I'm Ray Guerrero. I use he, him, and his pronouns, and I'm the Director of Residence Life for the college, and I'm also the Associate Dean of Student Affairs. Student Affairs is the umbrella part of the college that takes care of everything outside of the classroom for you all as UCSD and ERC students. And I want to be one of many who want to welcome you to ERC. The nice thing about today's presentation being specifically for our first generation college students, it's a small group. And so I think we'll have a lot of time to answer questions throughout the process. We have several of our student leaders and other colleagues from the college too will take you through specifically the ins and outs of housing. That's the one thing I have the privilege of administering here at the college. And so hopefully we can answer all the questions you have regarding housing by the end of this time. And I will now pass it on to my colleague from iHouse, Julian Zepeda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julian Zepeda, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am the program coordinator at International House. International House is both a programming body to our entire campus community while also being a learning living community that is located in Eleanor Roosevelt College. So we do interact specifically with a learning living community that is 50% domestic students and 50% international students, which we will get into a little bit later. And I will pass it on to Alan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alan. I am I'm a resident advisor here at Eleanor Roosevelt College. I'll touch on more on what a resident advisor does, but I'm also a resident advisor for iHouse. So hopefully Julian has lots of fun things to say about iHouse in a little bit. Yeah. And for the 2024 to 2025 year, I'm also one of your lead resident advisors here at Eleanor Roosevelt College. So lots of housing information to pass on to you all. And then I'll pass it on to Chris.
Hey everyone, I'm a second year student. I'm a ERC student affairs intern. And so when you get to college, there's gonna be a lot of cool events that go on around ERC, and I'm gonna be one of those people helping plan those. I'm also an orientation leader for the upcoming fall quarter. And so if you're in my OL group, then feel free to say hi.
And I'll just take a second to go over what today is going to be like. We are going to have some presentations for you, and then we are also going to have windows of time where you can ask us questions. So if you are wanting to do that, I do encourage you to use the Q&A feature in Zoom. So you could submit them there, and we might type back to you or just answer them live. So there's going to be opportunities for you to do that. We'll be going over like logistics of housing, so important dates, deadlines, logistics, like really getting down to it. And you'll have the opportunity to ask our Res Life staff questions about that. And then we're going to focus more on the experience of living on campus. So making the most of what you have if you are living in the ERC neighborhood or somewhere else at UCSD. And then some of our students here are actually going to be answering questions about those topics. So we're going to move straight into it. I believe, Ray, you are going to start things off. So go ahead.
Thanks, Will. So again, for me, being the Director of Residence Life, it's always important for me that people know the system here at UC San Diego. As a first generation college student myself, I know that it was entirely a new experience to follow deadlines and to really look at what being in college was all about. I had no one to really provide me with being a personal resource, being the first person in my family to go to college. So I really depended a lot on the university. I was lucky enough to transfer, be a transfer student to another UC, UC Santa Barbara at the time, back a million years ago. But similar programs such as this, where we were offered specific meetings and orientations to get us sort of acclimated as soon as possible in regards to the timelines and the fast pace of the quarter system here at UC San Diego. And so I always took that with me once I started working in the university system, and especially here at UC San Diego, to really make sure that our students understand the responsibilities that they have to meet deadlines in order to successfully navigate being housed on campus, and more importantly, to keep your 2-year guarantee for housing. And so anybody who's been admitted to UC San Diego is guaranteed 2 years of housing. For those of you probably know already, because you're here in this webinar, that the housing deadline the deadline to apply for housing has already passed. It was back in early June, June 7th. And then this week, you all should have received an email from UC San Diego with instructions about how to file your contract. So the housing contract is one of the steps to ensure that you keep your 2-year housing guarantee. And so it's important that you meet the deadlines for completing that contract in order to get housing on campus, and more importantly, to keep your guarantee. So you should have received that email from housing this week. And then you have until July 1st to turn in your housing contract. So the housing contract is a document that you would sign, just like if you were signing a contract at an apartment or any place you would live outside of your home, to contract for the year of housing. At UC San Diego, that housing contract includes a bunch of different things that you are responsible for filling out before that July 1st deadline. And those things range from what kind of meal plan you want, to whether you have a choice of roommates that you'd like to live in, the type of living space that you want to live in, and we'll go into that in a little bit. And then more importantly, that you also return the contract signed along with the $450 prepayment that is required in order to keep your housing guarantee. So even if you send in your contract by July 1st, if you don't include that $450 prepayment, you forfeit your guarantee. So make sure that both the signed housing contract is completed and that you have that $450 prepayment attached to that payment. The prepayment is not covered by financial aid. So if you have applied for financial aid, just know that that $450 prepayment won't be covered. So you'll have to come up with that yourself. You can be reimbursed for it when your financial aid award comes in. But for the purposes of meeting the deadline for the contract, that has to come in separately by check or money order or traveler's check with your contract. So the July 1st deadline is the first thing you should remember. And the one thing you should take away from this webinar is that in order to continue on and to be housed here on campus your first year, meet that deadline of July 1st with that completed housing contract and that $450 prepayment. Other important dates happen once you turn in that contract. The first one is later in July, July 8th. That is the deadline to apply for a living learning community or gender inclusive housing. Now, Julian is going to come on in just a little bit after I finish this overview to talk about what our living learning communities are and what those are for options for you. Outside of the living learning community, you will be placed in housing here in the ERC community. But if you want a special living learning experience, then there's a separate application for that Julian will cover. Another special accommodation you can ask for is gender inclusive housing. And that would be if you don't particularly want to live with folks of your own identified gender, the housing here is gendered housing. So we have housing for males and female identified students separate from each other. However, if you do want to live in a situation where there is a mixed gender setting, you can do that by applying for gender inclusive housing. So again, that's a separate process that that process is due by July 8th. And so again, you must meet the housing contract deadline of July 1st to begin with. You can feel free to screenshot this slide so you can see that website that's on under July 8th as well, that has more information about both living learning communities and gender inclusive housing. A lot of the information from this website is what Julian will be covering in just a little bit in regards to living learning communities, but everything else will be covered there for your information as well. So following July 8th, or actually also on July 8th, another priority deadline is for anybody who feels they need a special housing accommodation. And so again, if you feel you need a housing accommodation that is particular to your living needs, so if you have particular living conditions that you need to live under, say if you're highly allergic and you need to prepare your own food, so you need to live in an apartment which has a kitchen, then you would need to make arrangements for that kind of accommodation through our Office for Students with Disabilities, or OSD. And so that information is in your contract information that you've just received, and that deadline again to request an accommodation for anything outside of a roommate or living learning community or gender inclusive housing will be on July 8th. Then going down the other important deadlines, July 22nd will be the deadline to request any particular roommates. If you wish to live with somebody that you know is coming to UC San Diego and has also been accepted to Eleanor Roosevelt College, you can request that person to live with you. That person would also have to request you to live with them, so it has to be a mutual request. But if that is mutual, we will honor that if we can. That is July 22nd is also the deadline to request a specific room type on your contract application. And so whether you want to live in a single, a double, or a triple, if you want to live in an apartment versus a residence hall, July 22nd is the deadline for that. So once all of that has been set to motion with all the deadlines and you're completing that entire package of the contract, your prepayment, any kind of special requests or applications you're making for living learning communities, gender inclusive housing, or other housing accommodations, roommate requests, and room type preferences, all of that has to be done by the deadlines that are stated here on this slide. Then once that's done, later in August, you'll be sent a room assignment, which hopefully covers all of the requests that you have made. All of the requests are preferences and aren't guaranteed, but we try and accommodate them as best as possible. So come late August, you will get your roommate assignment. That will tell you where you're living. It'll let you know if you were matched with roommates that you asked for. And it will also have information on how to access all of that information on the housing portal. So you can go in, check that out. What it'll also have is an assigned move-in date. And so you can go into the housing portal and change that housing move-in date if you wish to. Say, for example, if you want to come earlier than your assigned move-in date because you're attending orientation, you'll be able to do that at that time, etc. So late August is when you can make those arrangements. It's also an opportunity for you to contact your roommates that you've been assigned, which is really important, especially if you haven't made arrangements to live with somebody that you know. It'll give you an opportunity to get together and communicate with them, talk a little bit more about who is bringing what during the fall, so you're not all bringing, so there's not two or three sets of microwaves and televisions and refrigerators that are all brought when you move in. You can make those arrangements beforehand. And then later, once you move in the fall, on October 1st, you can change your dining plan. So there are choices for dining plans as well. The dining plan is required and part of your housing package. And so you can use that time to decide once you've been to campus whether the plan that you're going through in the dining hall is up to what your needs are, and then you can change that by October 2nd. Now, there's asterisks all over this calendar for folks that are currently waitlisted. And so if you're in a situation where you're waitlisted and are being admitted late by our admissions office, all of these deadlines could change. And so please note that if you are in that situation, these deadlines may or may not still apply to you. But if you have been admitted and you know you're admitted already, then definitely follow these deadlines. So hopefully we'll have some time to answer your questions. Feel free to use the Q&A in regard to that, but definitely take a screenshot of this so you remember these dates, and then go ahead and switch to the next slide, Will, if you can. So very quickly, just to answer the question of where will you be living on campus, I mentioned earlier that your contract will guarantee you 2 years of housing. That first year of housing is what you're applying for now. So the application and the contract you're filling out now is just for this first academic year coming up, 24-25. And you'll be placed in the ERC neighborhood where there are 2 areas that our students would live in, either in residence halls or apartments. So the residence halls are your what we call traditional dorms. So if you have heard about students living in the dorms, a dorm or a residence hall is particularly a building that's set up in a suite style. So it's a suite comprised of several double, triple, and some single rooms that surround a central living room or a suite lounge, and then with a total of anywhere from 15 to 16 people per suite. So you would share that space with 15 to 16 other people also living in other double bedrooms or triple bedrooms or singles, and then you all share the same bathroom. So your building consists of 8 to 10 suites depending on where you're living, and the suites themselves are self-contained with 15 or 16 persons, each sharing a bathroom with their living space and bedrooms on that same suite. And then all of that building would then share a large study lounge and community kitchen on the downstairs floor of each building. So the residence halls is where the majority of our first year students live, and it provides a very, very easy way for people to meet each other and to get to know one another. When Alan talks about a little bit more about the RA's role, he can talk about the differences between living in a residence hall versus an apartment. So the other option for first year students would be living in an apartment. And apartments are, just as you probably know, if you have family members that live in apartments, or if you yourself live in an apartment, you know that it's a separate living space that's attached to a building, several apartments in one building. The apartments here at ERC are designed for 4 to 6 persons living in either mini doubles or single bedrooms. Each apartment is then self-contained with those 4 to 6 people sharing a full kitchen, a bathroom, and a living room for those 4 to 6 people in that apartment. In addition to that, some ERC students may be placed over in 7th College, which is just north of us, our neighbor just north of us, where we have a community of ERC students clustered in those apartments there. Those apartments are similar to the ones here at ERC. Again, 4 to 6 persons per apartment in single, double, and triple rooms at 7th College. So apartment living is a little bit more intimate. You basically get to know the 4 or 6 people strictly in your apartment, and it's a little bit more challenging for you to get to know people outside of your apartment. A little less easy than in the residence halls because you don't have as many people living in under the same roof. So there's a little challenge that way. However, folks that are living in the apartments who prefer to cook on their own, for example, or who are more introverted and maybe get to know people more on a one-to-one basis and prefer that, the apartment situation might be better for you. So again, if that's the type of living arrangement you want, that would also be open to you. Regardless of whether you're living in a residence hall or an apartment, the neighborhood also includes dining plans that you can go to, either Ventanas, which is our large dining hall here at ERC. You can also use that same dining plan for the market and any other dining facility at the other colleges, including restaurants like the Bistro, which is up at 7th College, And then again, any other college that happens to be where your classes may be during that day, you can use that dining plan to eat in those dining halls. In addition to that, many of you will be opening up a Triton Cash account, and there are dining facilities close to ERC that you can use that Triton Cash account to purchase food at. Very close to ERC is Shake Smart, the Tech Cafe, and Ridgewalk Social. So those are other options for dining. In addition to that, again, whether you're living in the residence halls or the apartments, other amenities that you have available to you are laundry facilities, study and meeting rooms. There's a central mail room where all your mail will be received, packages, as well as Amazon lockers if you're ordering your packages directly through Amazon. Game room and the student activity center, both here at ERC and at 7th College. And then REMAC, which is our big campus rec complex, is right next to ERC and 7th. So that's very close proximity. A lot of our students enjoy the fact that you're so close to that, recreation facility. And again, if you want to take a screenshot of this slide, at the very bottom in tiny print is another website that you can click onto that will describe everything that I've just described in regards to the type of housing options that are open for you. There's also a video on that website that gives you a virtual tour of our facilities, as well as the facilities over at 7th College, if you want to take a look and see what the lay of the land looks like in the residence halls and apartments in both those areas. And so that's about it for that. We'll have some time for questions and answers afterwards, and we'll move on to the option of living learning communities. And I'll pass that on to my colleague, Julian, to take over.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. So what are living learning communities, or LLCs? UC San Diego is committed to creating more spaces where a diverse population of undergraduate students can connect with each other, with the university, and with others within the community. LLCs are characterized by housing within the same residence location, shared co-curricular experiences, access to resources, and engaging in activities that enforce common affinities, such as aspect of cultures and certain topics that students may want to explore outside of the classroom. Next slide. Boom. So here's a list of living learning communities. So in Muir College, we have the LGBTQIA+ living learning community. This community is for people who identify on the spectrum of LGBTQIA+ to live together and have spaces to discover their own identities as well. We have the African Black Diaspora Living Learning Community at 6th College. This community is for Black students to come together and have a space to get to know one another, but then also have spaces to validate their experiences here in San Diego. And then the Multicultural Living and Learning Community at 6th College is based on topics of multiculturalism and student activism. We also do work with they do work with an organization on campus called Spaces, in which they do have support for underserved and underrepresented students here on campus. And then in Eleanor Roosevelt College, we do have the Rasa Living Learning Community and International House, which I will explain in further detail on the next slides. Cool. So Rasa Learning Living Community, the Rasa LLC program provides a space within the International House complex and one of the residence halls in Eleanor Roosevelt College for new and continuing UCSD students from all 6 colleges to live and contribute to a vibrant learning and living community. Our Rasadents are committed to developing an understanding of the greater appreciation for the Chicanx and Latinx experience in San Diego and the United States and the histories and cultures of Latin America. Our programmatic objectives of community building, mentorship, and education help develop peer-to-peer relationships with International House and opportunities with the Rasa Resource Centro and the campus student organizations, creating formal and informal collaborations throughout the year. I personally have not been part of Rasa, but I do have a lot of friends who are in Rasa and who were Rasa RAs. There are a lot of great experiences to come together and explore different Latino and Chicano spaces here in San Diego. One of the more signature events is going to Chicano Park, which is located in Barrio Logan towards downtown. And it's a great experience to see different cultures all come together and have that cross-cultural collaboration. And we will go to the next slide. International House. So the campus's first and largest living community is comprised of students from all colleges and the UC Education Abroad program, representing over 30 countries annually with the goal of 50% international and 50% domestic residents. A part of the International House Worldwide Consortium, iHouse shares their mission of promoting global awareness and intercultural understanding. Residents are expected to actively contribute to community programs, including the Global Forum, which is a lecture series involving campus community members and members outside in the San Diego community. Language conversation tables, which are weekly gatherings of students to either practice or teach a language that they are familiar with. Sunday Supper, which is our quarterly formal, and International Women's Week, which is one of our events that we put on highlighting the success and history of women internationally. So this is just a very small scope of what International House is. I can go on for hours of the different types of programming that happens, along with just the culture that it brings. I really do encourage you all to look to apply to International House if you do have an affinity for international and cross-cultural collaboration. Going to the next slide. Awesome. So how do you apply for an LLC? Students have until July 8th to apply to an LLC. No, if you signed your signed housing contract must also be received by the July 1st deadline. Applying to an LLC is a competitive application process. So things to consider when you are applying is to think about why you would want to live at an LLC over any other campus housing option. And most successful applications are based on the quality and intent of an applicant's responses. So if you are not accepted into an LLC, you will still be assigned a general space in the ERC neighborhood. And I think with that, we're at our Q&A session.
So are there any questions about what Julie and I have covered in regards to the deadlines, the contract, the types of housing available, or any questions along those lines?
Yeah, so, and like Grace said, feel free to drop those questions in our Q&A feature. I did write down a few that came in as y'all were talking. So I'll be presenting the questions and then members of our panel can answer. The first question, I think, Julian, you may be the one to answer this, but they asked, is it possible, and if so, how do first years live in LLCs?
Yeah, so going back to that previous slide, Will. Oh, previous.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
There we go.
Cool. So you have until July 8th to apply to a learning living community. Your signed housing contract must have also been received by the July 1st deadline. So I hope that does answer that question.
And then I just want to jump in and add that any of the LLCs that Julian covered, so even though there are two that are specifically here at ERC, there are other ones that are at other colleges, you can apply to those as well. And but however, you have to choose one. So you can only apply to one LLC. And then if you are not accepted into the LLC, you will be deferred back to your home college. And so if you applied, for example, to the LGBT LLC over at Muir and weren't accepted, then you'll just be put back into ERC housing in general. And then you can reapply when they open up again for the following year. However, that also means even if you aren't accepted into an LLC, it doesn't mean that you can't be involved in the LLC. So even if you're not accepted to live there, you are more than welcome to experience what they have to offer in regards to events and programs. And they actually really encourage people to do that. So then the next time around when you apply, you become a more successful applicant because you can say that you've been involved in a lot of the organizations or activities, and they'll definitely take that into account as well.
Yeah, and we got a follow-up that you kind of just spoke on, Ray, but the question was, is it possible to live in an LLC in our second year if we don't get accepted our first time?
Most
Absolutely,
definitely.
right?
Yeah, so whether you were, so for example, anybody who's been accepted to an LLC this year as a freshman, wherever they are, can reapply for their second year because you have that second year of housing guarantee and apply again to either the same LLC you're living in or to a different LLC. And for the same matter, if you weren't accepted to an LLC this year, you can certainly apply the next year. And again, having more experience by attending events and things like that, if you weren't accepted the first time around, will definitely make you a better candidate for next year.
Thank you. So Another question we got, does submitting the housing contract sooner give me a better chance at getting a single or living where I want to? Ray, I
And
think you
yeah,
have that one too.
that's a good question, and it should make sense, but unfortunately, it doesn't make a difference when you submit the contract. If you indicate that you want a single, it's basically what we have to offer. So we have different capacities for singles, doubles, and triple singles, mini doubles, doubles, and triple rooms. So it's a combination of your request of what room type you want, and then also the room type or the facility type that makes a difference. So in other words, they'll ask if you want to live in a residence hall or an apartment. Residence halls have fewer singles in them versus apartments. And so if you want a single room, your chances of getting a single are greater if you apply to be in an apartment, if that makes sense. And so you have to kind of weigh those options of what experience you want. So if you want the experience where you're meeting a lot of people quickly, if you like the idea of having sort of instant friends by having larger suites to live in, and living in a single isn't as big a priority to you as it is meeting people, then apply for a residence hall. If you definitely know you want a kitchen that you can cook in, and you are an introvert and want to live with fewer people, then apply for an apartment. And your chances of getting those are really high. It's not guaranteed, obviously, because again, we only have a certain number of each of those accommodations, but we certainly try and accommodate those needs.
Thank you, Ray. Another question, maybe for our students, Alan and Chris. Can I eat anywhere on campus? How does the dining dollars system work? Either of you feel like talking about that?
Chris, do you have anything you want to say? I can absolutely answer it.
You can go first, and I'll add on a little bit after you're done.
Cool. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with your dining plan, that dining plan that comes with your housing, you can absolutely eat anywhere on campus or any dining hall, any HCH facility with that dining plan. So the main one we have at ERC is Ventanas, and it's that beautiful building you see on your screen right now. They have really good food. I know we have like an Indian place. We have soul food. So a bunch of good food there. But let's say you have a class nearby. Let's say you have a class down in Revel. You absolutely can go to Revel's dining hall and use the dining plan there. And then Chris, if you have anything to add on, feel free.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of dining halls at UCSD. And so like you're not limited to one option. A big thing that I would suggest, like once you get on campus, and something that helped me, was there's like a mobile app you can download called Triton to Go. And it like will tell you all of the times of everything, what's open, and everything that you can access to. Like one really big thing for dining dollars is the market. There's two markets that I know of. I think there's actually four like scattered around campus, but the two ones you're close to is the 7th College and the 6th College one. And so those are really cool. You can use dining dollars to get groceries and stuff. The only thing I would point out is that there's a really big difference, and this is something I struggled with as a first gen, really big difference between dining dollars and Triton cash. Because usually in your dining plans, you'll get dining dollars and Triton cash. Dining dollars can only be used at HTH places, while Triton cash can be used at other places like Price Center or some of the other locations on campus.
Thank you both for that. And I think I'm not seeing too many more questions. We had one more. Is there a kitchen in the residence halls? And I believe the buildings have a kitchen, but maybe someone could talk about that.
Go for it, Alan.
Yeah, so the residence halls there is a kitchen on the first floor, but that's shared amongst the entire building. So I believe that's like all 100 plus people living in the residence hall. You don't have one in your particular suite.
Okay, yeah. And I think I remember when I was a student, I actually had friends at ERC, and we would do like family dinners sometimes where we would buy food and like go down to the first floor and cook things together. It's a fun like communal place. but I wouldn't recommend planning to make food every single day there. So yeah, okay. And we're just waiting a moment to see if there's any other questions about what we've talked about so far before we move forward. Okay, we got one more. And Ray, maybe you know more about this. I think I know the answer to this, but can first year residents have cars on campus?
I'm going to defer to the students, but I think they're not allowed, correct? First years?
I know the answer to this. I didn't know if Ray, you maybe knew more about it, but so initially our first year residents are not able to have cars on campus. And there is a way. I know we often get like questions like, can I apply for an exception and things like that? There are exceptions. So you can apply if maybe you have like a job off campus or some reason that you need to leave campus regularly to buy a parking pass, but it's not very common. So a lot of first year students, I know they're like, can I bring my car? We recommend not bringing it. I would love to hear from Chris and Alan. How do you get around campus? How do you get around San Diego? Potentially without a car, or if you know anyone that manages that. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, kind of like wrapping also the question that was just asked in the chat is a lot of people bring stuff to like for short travel. So like scooters, bikes, people will bring that. And so you're able to get around campus with that. And that's very encouraged. I will say another thing that's really helpful because I was someone who I come from the Central Valley, so I really wanted to bring my car. I applied for exception, I didn't get it, but I learned that public transport in San Diego is actually really, really nice. If you're a student, you have your public transport paid for as long as you're like a student. And so you have access to like the Pronto buses and the Blue Line. And these are like really good transport systems that like I use even today because I now live off campus. And it's very accessible. The Blue Line's like on campus, so if you want to go to the mall, it's like a very short trip. But yeah, I think that like specifically within San Diego, you really don't need your car unless you're like working very far off campus or something like that.
Chris or Alan, do you want to touch on the campus shuttle?
Yeah, absolutely. I know, and in the student experience slides too, like the ones we're talking about in a little bit, we'll get more into the getting around campus and getting around San Diego. But we do have an inside loop and an outside loop shuttle here at UCSD, and they're really convenient. They'll take you different parts of campus, and they come every so often. And there's different stops too. There's also an app or a website that we can share with you all a little bit that tells you like when each shuttle comes and where the stops are.
Great. And we're about to move on. The last question we got, and Chris touched on it a little bit, it was, can first year students bring electric scooters? You can. It's very common, actually. Ray or Alan, do they often charge them in their res halls, like bring them into the res halls, or do they keep them outside? Or is that allowed or not?
Technically, if they keep them indoors, they have to keep them in their living space. So they can't leave them in the lounges or in the stairwells or something like that. Otherwise, they'd have to leave them outside.
Great, thank you. And thanks everyone for submitting questions. We're actually going to move on now to our student life portion of this. And Alan, is it going to be you speaking now?
Yes, it will be. Thank you, Will. But yeah, so hi everyone. I just want to introduce myself again. I'm Alan. I'm one of the resident advisors here at ERC. And we'll touch on what my role is and what we do in a little bit. But what I'm here to talk about is the student experience and the student perspective part about living on campus, which I think is really fun. And then different ways on how first-gen students can get resources and can also get involved on campus. But first, I'll have Will talk about the first-gen committee here at ERC.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, so ERC has our very own first gen committee. And the purpose of this committee, and it consists of multiple staff members and some students from across departments in ERC, is to provide support for you all as first generation students. Throughout the year, that consists of a few different things. We plan events and programs that sometimes they are just for fun for you to come and connect and hang out and kind of enjoy yourself, but we will also have some that are more informal and like educational. So we had like a resource fair this past year as we were going into our first finals week of the school year to help prepare students and connect them with resources around campus that can help them. So I just wanted to highlight our committee. You are able to kind of look out for what we're doing throughout the school year. We do have some QR codes on here. The first one is the First Gen Resources pamphlet. I really recommend you bookmark this one because it's super helpful. A group of our interns, including Chris, actually put this together, and it's really supposed to work as a complete kind of guide and cheat sheet for you to get resources and help throughout your time on campus. So go ahead and save that. Additionally, we have a QR code for our ERC First Gen webpage. We will often update that webpage with our events. We also have a list of staff on there who are also first generation college students. And we are happy to, oh shoot, sorry, give me 1 second. We are happy to kind of give you insight or provide specialized support based off our own perspectives. One thing I like to point out, yes, I was a first gen college student, but I'm also like a first gen like professional as well. So we still live through the first gen experience as staff members, and we are happy to kind of help you and support you through that lens. So yeah, I'm gonna pass it back to Alan.
Thank you, Will. All right, so I've done this term resident advisor quite a bit in my title, but so who is your resident advisor, or we call them RAs for short. We work as a team basically to make your second home here at ERC fun, enjoyable, and safe. So here at ERC, we have a total of 27 RAs and 3 lead RAs. Each building at ERC will have around 2 to 3 RAs, so you have 2 to 3 people that you can talk to rely on. And our main role is to be a resource for you all. So what we do is we can connect you to other campus resources. So maybe the Writing Hub, maybe you need help with an MMW paper. We absolutely can refer you to the Writing Hub or Oasis for help. We can also help you with any living or housing issues, or if you just want to rant about your classes, rant about anything in general, we can offer a listening ear for that as well. And the next slide. So what do we do as RAs? So we basically help plan fun events for you all year round. So we have more events on programming and planning events in later slides and like different kinds of events we host throughout the year. We also assist you in living issues such as roommate disputes, roommate conflict management, or lockouts. We conduct a building meeting for you all at the beginning of the year, and we also facilitate living space agreements. And those are also just for you all to talk about your living habits and to just basically facilitate those conversations on like how you live and let your roommates understand like your perspective and the way your living habits. And there's also an RA or office assistant in the Res Life office from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. If you need assistance, so maybe you're locked out of your room or locked out of your suite, come to the Res Life office and we will help you with anything in that regard. The next slide. And how do I connect with our RA? A lot of us are older, we're upperclassmen, so we might be a little intimidating, but I swear we're really nice people and we really do want to get to know you all. At the beginning of the year, like I said, we host a building meeting just to get to know our residents better. So you can meet us, you can meet other people who are living in the building, and we just basically we just talk about the building. We also do the living space agreements, like I said. So basically the living space agreements is that your RA will assign a time, or we will get together with you and your suite, and we will just talk about, we're giving you that space to talk about your living habits and different roles. So for example, music in the suite, or like other guest policy stuff in that regard. So basically you can talk about what you're comfortable with and what you're not, and us as RAs will try our best to help you and make you feel comfortable in that regard. You also have a roommate agreement a lot, especially for the ones in the res halls. Basically, you have your suite agreement with your entire suite or your apartment mate, and then you have your roommate agreement, which is the one you share with your roommate specifically. And those are usually amongst you and your roommate. But if you do want an RA to help facilitate that conversation, feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to help you do that. Other ways to connect with our RA, with your RA throughout the year is to attend our big events and the small informal events we'll be hosting. Again, we'll be talking about the different kinds of events we have throughout the year. And all of us, all of the RAs have a sign on our front window with our name, a big name plastered on the window. So feel free to contact us through email or the building Instagram that you will send out to you all. Or if we are home, knock on our doors. And a lot of us are also students, so we're walking from class. So if you see us throughout campus, feel free to say hi. We always want to meet you all and see you all. So further on, how do I connect with ERC and Res Life? So us as a committee, so we have many opportunities for leadership and programming experience. So you can also help us program events and like plan fun stuff. There's different committees we have. So we have one called planning events at Roosevelt College, so PERC, or Student Council of ERC, CIRC. These committees help plan, program, and lead fun events for you all throughout the year. So if you are interested in that, feel free to come out to these meetings and like plan events with us. At the beginning of the year, we also have something called Taste of ERC, which is really fun because it's a bunch of different planning committees and different orgs throughout that are involved in ERC that you can check out and see if you're interested in them so you can join them. Like Julian said, iHouse has many fun events, and I, as an iHouse RA, absolutely agree with Julian. I've been to the language conversation tables, I've been to Sunday Supper and the global forums, and they're a lot of fun. So if you want to get involved with iHouse, or let's say you're not living in iHouse, you absolutely can attend these programs and get involved with ERC and Res Life in that way. And then finally, every week, your RA will be sending you a newsletter. And these newsletters are a great resource to check out the multitude of events that are happening because it might get overwhelming sometimes. So hopefully these newsletters will condense all these events into an easy to read document so you can see what's going on around campus. All right, so programming. So a big thing we do as RAs is to host programs and to host events for you all year. So you can get to know each other, get to know your community, and get involved in ERC. So ERC's mission is to develop citizens of the world through scholarship, leadership, and service. And basically what we do as RAs is to plan events that embody these ideals. So we have these 3 pillars, and these formal programs and informal programs are hosted amongst these pillars. And then some examples of informal events that we do as RAs include karaoke, game nights, movie nights, and something I did with my residents is go to Tapioca Express, a place on campus, and we get boba for you all. So yeah. So when I say scholarship, leadership, service, these are the pillars that we like to follow for the programs we host and cater to you all. So first we have scholarship. So the scholarship events are meant to support and foster academic success through campus resources, such as the academic advising and the writing hub. So some fun events that we've had at ERC were the MMW study sessions, or we have a study abroad Q&A that was really cool. So maybe if you're interested in studying abroad, we have a Q&A panel so you can talk to the study abroad office on how to get started with that process. Leadership events engage residents to leadership opportunities through different organizations, such as, like I said, CIRC and PERC, and they also function a foster of culture and care through education around social identities. So some fun ones we've had throughout the year, we had one called Nightmare on iWalk, which is basically a fun Halloween trick-or-treating event, and all the houses of ERC line up on International Lane. And you just go to each of the tables, each of the houses, literally like trick-or-treating, like you go to each house and get candy from everyone. And at the end, once you go to all of the houses, you get a little prize, which is really fun. And we also have a lunar light celebration. So to celebrate Lunar New Year, we had a fun event where we made spring rolls, we made lanterns, and we had snack bags for you all to take little goodies back afterwards. And then service events, service programs are here to connect service through students' passion and career objectives. And these programs are often done in partnership with college and campus-wide services, such as Ellie's Garden, HCH Sustainability, and Econauts. So a fun one we had this year was the Sustainable Spring event. And that was really cool because it was a bunch of buildings coming together, and we had like tree planting, succulent planting. I know a lot of students really like the succulents, and you can paint your pots. We had a clothes drive, so people donated their clothes, and we were able to exchange and meet people through that way. And we also had acai bowls, which were really tasty as well. So these are all the different programs and more we offer throughout ERC. So if you can, please come out to them. They're a lot of fun, and they're a great way to meet other people as well. And then, so for student life on campus, there is a lot of things to get involved in on campus as well. So we have campus study spots. So in ERC, we have Middle Earth, which is one of our campus, which is one of our ERC study spots. But let's say you're far from ERC, you're studying somewhere else. We have a bunch of study spots you can study at around campus. We have UCSD Rec, Outback Adventures, Intramural. So if that's something that you're interested in, those are really fun. They also plan really fun events throughout the year. Price Center and the Old Student Center has delicious food, some restaurants there. In Gliderport, if you are into the outdoors and you like hiking and you like seeing pretty sunsets, that's there for you as well. For student involvement, like Will talked about, we have the ERC First Gen Committee, and we have many other ERC student organizations you can take part in as well. We have campus-wide student orgs, community centers, Greek life, student employment, and then college leadership as well. And there is a campus involvement webinar on August 16th. So please attend that if you get the chance to. And then we did get some questions about getting around campus. Yeah, so campus is really big, and there's different ways that you can do that with. So we have campus shuttles. So like I said, we have the inside loop and the outside loop, and that basically takes you to around different parts of campus. There is a live shuttle tracker right here for you. That's the website if you ever need to find the exact location of a shuttle or your nearest shuttle spot. We also have spin bikes and spin scooters around campus. There's a spin app you can download, and you can use those to get around campus really quickly. You can also bring your own bikes, e-scooters, like we said, and you can walk as well around campus. And currently, we want to note that there is construction going on around campus, so there are alternate paths you can take, but that's just something to keep note of when you're getting around campus. And then finally, accessing San Diego. So let's say you want to get off campus and you want to see more of San Diego. What options do you have to do that? There are bus routes. So they're located near Gilman Parking Structure, which is south of UCSD. And there's a bunch of different lines you can take to get to different places around San Diego. So the 201, 202 takes you to grocery stores, UTC, which is like a mall here, which is a mall near UCSD. The 30 line takes you to Old Town or downtown San Diego, and then 101 takes you to different other coastal cities. There's a central campus trolley stop here at UCSD, which is really cool too. So the blue line is the one we take, and it takes you all the way from UTC to San Ysidro, which is down to the Mexican border. And then like Chris mentioned, we also have, it's paid for. So you have the free Pronto app. If you download that, your UPass comes for free with UCSD. So if you download that, you can use the blue line for free. And there's zip cars and grocery shuttles also there to help you if you need anything like that as well. All right, so yeah, that was a lot of me just talking, but yeah, if you have any questions about student life or student engagement or involvement, please feel free to ask those in the chat.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, and I'll reflect or just add on to what Alan said. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. One we got that I'm curious to hear about, can I call or text my RA in the moment if there is a housing issue? If not, how do students go about that?
That is a great question. So you absolutely can contact us. We have your email, or if you need us, you can knock on our door. But we also have a contact guide made for you at the beginning of the year with a bunch of different resources you can contact in case of emergency. So it sounds like that, like there's a housing issue. So we have the maintenance number for you if there's a maintenance issue. If you need UCPD or the police department, or USO, the University Security Officer, I believe is what they're called. We have those numbers for you on the contact guide in your res life or a res hall or apartment. So if you need those numbers, they're there for you and accessible.
Alan, do you want to talk a little bit about the RA on duty system?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And then from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., every day throughout the academic year, there is an RA on duty. And what we do is basically in the ResLife office from 6 to 9 p.m., there's an RA there to help you with lockouts or again, maintenance issues if you want to tell us and we can refer you to those resources. And then from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., there will not be an RA in the office, but there is a number you can call, the ResLife number. And if you are locked out from those times, we will help you out through that number as well.
And that just really reflects the fact that our RAs are students as well, just like you are. And so even though you may be used to running down and knocking on your RA's door, like Alan had mentioned, if they have a class or if they have a study session or whatever and are away from the building, then you should know that there is always an RA on duty that you can contact who is exactly like your RA, but they're the one assigned to be there specifically for people to assist. And so that's what Alan was describing. So we understand that we want to make sure that our RAs are successful students, just like you all. And so that's why we have the RA on duty system in place as well.
Thanks, y'all. Oh, and while we're talking about this, we also got a question. Are there time schedules such as like quiet hours, and how does that work?
Yes, we do. We have quiet hours and we will announce those to you all at the building meeting, which is what the building meeting is there for. But if you want the exact hours, do you know them, Ray, perchance on the top of your head?
Sure.
think-
Just to talk a little bit about quiet hours, we want to make sure that people know that the policy that we have for living together on campus is really to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to primarily have a place that they can depend on to sleep and study. And so we don't set up our policies so that people feel they can't do anything here. We just want to ensure that those primary rights of sleep and study are going to be available for everybody since you're all living so close together. And so just in general, we want to foster a situation where people respect each other and do the courtesy thing and be courteous about how they're making noise or how their interactions may affect other people who live next door or upstairs or downstairs. And so we have 24-hour courtesy hours. And so what that means is the entire day, folks can do what they want, but they need to be aware of how their noise might be affecting others. And the courtesy quiet hours are such that we encourage people, if they're being bothered by their neighbor's noise, that they can go and approach them and say, hey, I'm trying to study. Can we just work this out? You guys go to the lounge or the dining hall to make your to socialize as opposed to being right next door to me. And so that courtesy setup is there for everybody to have these conversations. And the living space agreements that Alan was talking about are conversations that the RAs foster and facilitate with the residents to have those kind of conversations about how will I approach you if you're making too much noise, or how will I approach you if you and your guests are making too much noise? And so that's why we have 24-hour courtesy hours, so people feel they have the freedom to approach each other and ask for help. In addition to that, we have regular quiet hours. So between 10 p.m. On weekdays and 11 p.m. on weekends until 8 o'clock in the morning, there is a policy that noise is not allowed because, again, we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to sleep and study, especially during those hours of the evening. And so that is where, if you do violate that, again, it's not immediate, but that is something that you can be held accountable for. And so an RA can then document that if you're making noise and not being aware of the fact that you should be quiet given those actual times. So I hope that makes sense, that 24 hours, our expectation is that people will be aware of how their noise affects other people, but there are specific quiet hours that ensure that people will be able to sleep without having to worry about their neighbors making a lot of noise. Alan, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that was great, Ray. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks to you both. For our next question, it's for our students here, so Alan and Chris. People were asking like what you are involved in on campus, and maybe you could talk also about how you got involved with those things. Maybe Alan first and then Chris, you could go next.
Yeah. Okay. So, but yeah, currently I'm an RA for ERC, and I joined my second year. So I have RA for 2 years for ERC, which I absolutely loved. And like I said, I am an RA for International House too, which I think is really fun. So I'm really involved in the iHouse planning. I volunteer for Sunday Supper. It's a really cool time to meet different people, and your residents, you see your residents participating in those events as well, which is actually really cool, which is really fun to see as well. Other stuff I'm involved in on campus. I also am a UA or an IA. So you meet those throughout your classes. I'm an IA for the bio department, or I taught bio classes, which is really fun. And then I do research as well. So I'm involved in research at the medical center, and I help patients with Huntington's disease, and I do research on that aspect as well. So those are my current roles on campus. Chris, passing it on to you.
Yeah. So other than student affairs and being an orientation leader, I'm a psychology major and I do psychology research. Specifically, the one that's near ERC is called Rades, which is a business school. But my major is like business and psychology, and so the research I do there bridges psychology studies and management to kind of wrap that up into one like single field of study. Outside of that, I'm very big in clubs. My first one that I joined when I was like a first year was a club called Triton Gaming, which I had a lot of fun with. We planned a lot of events. We actually just had our very big event in the beginning of June, which had 1.8 thousand students. So the gaming clubs are really big. I'm involved with them. I also joined another club this year, which was Association for Computing and Machinery, and I acted as their DEI director for a while. And so there's a lot of clubs on campus, and there's a lot of differing interests. And so the way I would say get involved is during your first week on campus, go to Library Walk, which is right in front of the big library Geisel, and a lot of clubs will be tabling. And that's kind of how you get to know what clubs are there, how to get involved, how you like can join their teams or their officer base and start working on projects like that.
Thanks to you both. And I just want to add, I think as you are incoming students, like spending your first few weeks on campus, there will be a lot of opportunities to learn a lot about different organizations. And that's awesome. But it's not like if you miss out on joining during your first week, you have to wait for the next year or anything like that. Student orgs and different things on campus, like they're doing things throughout the school year, and they are almost always willing to take on new members or new participants. So don't hesitate if you don't like find the exact student org or your place on campus your first week, because there's a lot of them and there's no way you can really explore all of them right when you start your time on campus. And if there's like a certain thing you're interested in, I recommend looking, like you can Google it, but also like social media. I think most orgs and stuff have Instagram accounts where you can learn about upcoming events they have and different things like that. So just know there will be a lot of opportunity. And if you're feeling overwhelmed during your first few weeks, that's okay. There will still be a lot of opportunity. Next question. How does one get packages and mail delivered to campus? Alan, go ahead.
Good question. Yes. Okay. So for big packages, such as like for big boxes, big packages, we have a student mail center by the student activity center. So you get an email from the mail services, and they'll tell you to come pick it up through their business hours. I believe it is 10 to 4 Monday to Friday, and you go in there, and there's a person there that'll check out your big packages. For small letters, small mails, we have mailboxes in between the ERC Res Life office. So there's a door, the ERC Res Life office door, and on the sides there are your mailboxes. You'll be given your combination and your box number once you move into your space at the beginning of the year. And we recommend you testing the lock combination, testing the lock, because I think a lot of people have trouble opening those mailboxes. So we recommend doing that at the beginning. But yes, that's how you get your mail.
Thanks, Alan.
Alan, do you want to talk about the Amazon boxes?
Oh, yes, yes. And those are the Amazon boxes, actually, I love so much. They're so convenient to use. It's located also beside the laundry on the Res Hall side of ERC. And basically, when you order Amazon packages, you can there's a option to select it to send it to the LE the LE Amazon boxes, and they'll ship it to there automatically for you. And you can pick it up with a code, and you'll get an email for that as well when your package comes in.
Thank you, Alan. Chris, I think you could talk about this next question we got, but it is, what research programs are there at UCSD specifically for psychology? And maybe since we have two researchers here, you can share like, what is the process like of like looking for an opportunity to do research on campus? So Chris, go ahead.
I think that there's a lot of opportunities with research on campus. I found mine just from looking on like there's a lot of websites that UCSD has that like offers research postings from like RAs and labs. So like Handshake is one that you'll get familiar with when you get on campus. It's where people post jobs on campus, people post research opportunities on campus. And those are really good at like finding what research you can apply for. But it is like an application and it is like an interview process. And sometimes it's a really big struggle. There's another research focused website that is only research postings, but I'm forgetting the name of it right now. But it's also a really good one. There's also the undergraduate research hub that you can find on the internet, which has like postings about research as well. But specifically with psychology programs, there's a few ways you can actually get access to it. They offer some classes when you get to the upper division status, which is just if you have a lot of units, like I think it's 90 units or more, you become upper division status. You're able to do stuff like psychology 193, which is like independent studies. It's all focused about research. It's like very, very like specific with, it tells you what you do, you can apply for it. And it's very like easy to get access to. With other things as well, and sometimes you'll find yourself doing this, is like you take a psychology class that you really like. You like the professor talks about usually what their research is throughout their lectures. You go, I want to be an RA. So you can just email your professor and say, do you have any openings for this? I actually did this a long time ago and I got a lab position out of that. And so definitely just try to stay in tune with your professors, try to just keep looking on the internet, like the research hub, the Handshake, and just keep looking for postings and you will end up finding one.
And Alan, did you have much to add after that? I know Chris covered a lot of it.
I was going to say Chris's answer was amazing. I think the website you were talking about, Chris, was the Real Portal. Is that the one you were mentioning? Yeah, the Real Portal. So that's a place where a lot of places will post their undergraduate research opportunities for you all. And then, yeah, like Chris said, I also really recommend not cold calling necessarily, but like getting to know your professors, because your professors are really also interested in their research as well. So they'll talk about it a lot. And if it's something that aligns with your interests, absolutely feel free to go to the office hours, talk to them about it, and ask them if they have any openings.
Thank you. And I just want to share, we are winding down. We have about 9 minutes left till our ending time. Our next question, any of our residents, I think, could answer this. Is laundry free, and where is laundry located? If you're living in a res hall versus apartments, and then maybe you could touch on how one pays for laundry and the process of all that.
Yes. So we have two laundry facilities here at ERC. The first one is by the Student Activity Center on the rest hall side, so by the Amazon lockers and the Student Activity Center. The other one is on the northeast end of ERC, which is the one by iHouse. So those are the two laundry facilities we have. Usually the ones on the rest hall side will be the one would use the laundry room by the Student Activity Center, and then if you're living in iHouse or the apartments, you would use the iHouse laundry facilities. And for how it goes to how to go about paying for laundry, your dining plan does come with Triton Cash, and that is how you would pay for laundry and drying. So Triton Cash will get loaded onto your card when your dining plan activates, and there's a place to scan for your Triton Cash, and that's how you'd pay for laundry and drying.
And if people run out of Triton Cash, they can upload more, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So we are not having any more questions come in right now. So if any of our guests have any last minute questions, we will leave a little more space for you, but we are reaching the end. And then maybe I like to do this, and I did not prepare Alan or Chris for it, but if you have one piece of advice for an incoming student, what comes to your mind? Would you mind sharing about that as we close out the day?
I think for me, I would say don't be afraid to try new things and don't feel the need to like everything you try, because I think you're gonna be overwhelmed. You're gonna see a lot of different events and people calling to you at Library Walk, be like, come join our club. And you go, and if it's not something that aligns with your interests or it's not something that clicks with you, don't feel the need to stick with it. And it's okay because you can try different things throughout your college career. So that is something my piece of advice I'd provide.
Thank you, Alan. And yeah, I will touch on that a little bit in regards to like what you're studying as well. I personally was undeclared until going into my third year of college, and I felt a lot of pressure to figure that out. And I tried a lot of different areas of study while I figured that out. So along with like finding your place on campus and like the orgs you want to be part of or the communities you want to like spend time with, also with what you're going to study, if you aren't completely sure yet, that is totally okay. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I think kind of adding on to that is being a first gen student, you can have a lot of fear of like the unknown. I came from like a rural valley all the way to San Diego, and so I had to completely like relearn life, and a lot of people around me knew what they were doing because they grew up in an atmosphere that encouraged like a lot of academics and a lot of stuff like that. And so you're going to hear people talk about stuff that's like, oh, I have this internship lined up, I have this lined up, and you just don't like fully understand like you always feel like you're behind. But I will say is that you will find out really quickly that like you have a lot of strengths as a first generation student that others might not have, and to use that to your best ability. Like I've been able to like get a lot of places in UCSD and go as far as I have because I have the perseverance that a lot of first generation students have. And so I would definitely say like just because you may not have the same things of other people, you may not have the same things lined up, your strength is very unique to yourself.
Thank you, Chris. So we aren't getting any more questions. And with that being said, I just want to say thank you for everyone attending today. Not only our guests, but also our presenters and our panelists. We appreciate you. If you have any more questions specifically about housing, there is an email and a phone number on this slide. There's also a QR code for an FAQ page where you can find some more info. So yes, thanks so much, everyone. We are going to go ahead and end our webinar. We will see you in the fall. Bye, everybody. And I think someone else here may need to end it because I am not our host.
Well, let's see if it works for me. Okay, thanks everybody.
Nice job, everyone.
Bye.